Hey there, I'm Anissa Deanna, and today we're going to talk about should you go to a coding bootcamp. I'm going to discuss 7 questions you should think about before making that final leap. Let's go. Alright, I want to start off by saying you do not need to go to a coding bootcamp or to college in order to become a web developer. There are so many free online resources that you can take to learn everything you need to know about web development. However, going to a coding bootcamp does have its benefits, and I think it's up to you to weigh the pros and cons. So let's start by asking 7 questions to help you make that decision. Number 1, what are your career goals, and will going to a coding bootcamp help you to achieve them? Now, when I first was making this decision for myself, I was a help desk technician. I had previously transferred from being a customer service person to IT, and honestly, I hated my job. I hated it so much. It still felt like I was in customer service. Also, I did not want to go back to college. Couldn't do it. Couldn't spend another 2 years racking up student debt. It wasn't for me. Lastly, I had already spent time and failed learning C, and I had learned the basics of Python. And for me, every time I got to a question that the basic tutorials couldn't answer, I could not find the answers. I couldn't figure out what to do. And it was so frustrating trying to figure out what to do next. So for me, going to a coding bootcamp was an opportunity to connect with people, to connect with teachers and ask them these questions and get an answer right away. Number 2, have you attempted to learn coding on your own? Now, a lot of people want to make this transition, but they don't even know if they like to code. I personally don't think you should go to a coding bootcamp as a complete noob. I think you should attempt to learn some type of coding language so you can know where your weaknesses are, and when you get to that coding bootcamp, you can target those weaknesses. In addition, a lot of coding bootcamps will not admit you if you don't know anything about coding. For instance, I went to General Assembly and they required you to learn HTML and CSS through their learning portal before you even started. It really helped them out because that's one less thing that they have to cram into 12 weeks that you have to learn everything. Number 3, are you ready for the fast pace of a coding bootcamp? I wasn't. I cried twice. It's just really overwhelming and frustrating sometimes, but you have to be ready for that. Also, 2 weeks in, I found out that ADHD runs in my family, and I probably had it. I would miss whole chunks of lessons because the teacher would say something that would spark this thought, that would spark this thought, that would spark this thought, and then 5 minutes later, I had no idea what they were talking about. Honestly, my only saving grace was the teaching style at that coding bootcamp. They would do I do, you do, we do, which meant that first they would teach you, then they would give you practice questions so you can learn on your own, and then they would get everybody back together so that we can learn those practice questions and do them as a team. That's what got me through. Actually, in hindsight, going to this coding bootcamp helped me to get coping mechanisms that I would need in the fast-paced environment that I'm in today. I learned to time box, which is where you give yourself a certain amount of time before you ask questions of a senior dev. I learned about rubber ducking, which is where you talk to an inanimate object about your problem, and in doing so, you figure it out on your own. I learned about highs and lows, which is where you think you're a god and you've been sent to the world as a coding developer that can solve all problems. And then by the end of the day, you're wondering why you picked this job and you don't know anything and you feel like a fraud. Sometimes you go through that multiple times a week. Sometimes you go through that multiple times a day. And going here helped me to learn that that's okay. It happens. And lastly, I learned about taking breaks. I know that's a simple concept for most people, but I have a tendency to hyper-focus, and I can go without eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, and then I wonder why I can't figure out my problem because my brain doesn't work properly at this point. Number 4, do you thrive in a classroom environment, and do you need that one-on-one attention that you can get from it? So I do. I had already attempted to learn Python on my own, and during those times I always got to a point where I had more questions and Googling it just wasn't getting me the answers. There were certain points where I would get frustrated because I would spend hours and hours looking for answers and nobody answered them succinctly and got to the point. In addition, Before I got to the coding bootcamp, I did not know that I might have ADHD, and my motivation would wane, and my focusing was not focused at all. I just couldn't get to the certain point that I needed to advance my career. Even if you don't thrive in a classroom setting, there are benefits from being in a community type environment. So for instance, you get to work in teams, which you'll be doing in your future job anyway. You also get to meet people, and those people might help you get a job like it did me. Also, you don't feel so alone during those lows of highs and lows. You're around people who are also experiencing, and you're seeing that you're not alone. Number 5, are you financially prepared for the cost? Again, I wasn't, but thankfully I earned a scholarship to go, and I had people who supported my decision to go. My mom, my sister, and my boyfriend pretty much paid my bills while I went to school, and I couldn't have done it without them. So I would suggest to you to make sure that you're ready for this adventure. So I would suggest to you to make sure you look up their scholarships and see if they have any, or make sure you know their repayment plans. I would make sure that you have a savings for during and after, because not everybody gets a job right after they graduate. And I would make sure that you have a budget during. Don't eat out every day or eat out at all. Make sure you're going to the grocery store, you're cooking, and you're bringing your lunch, stuff like that. Number 6, are you committed to this long term, and this is really something you want to do? I was talking about this earlier when I said that a lot of people get into this because they heard IT was a good career field, or that it could make you a lot of money. But you really need to know your goals, because there are times where you're going to want to chuck your computer out the window and you're going to be questioning your life decisions, and having those goals is what's going to hold you down. What is the return on investment? Now, this question is for somebody who already knows they want to go to a coding bootcamp, but they just don't know which one they want to go to. And I would say research, research, research. So for me, I actually interviewed a previous student who had already went through the course that I wanted to go through. I just wanted to know their experience and how they felt about Journal Assembly, and I wanted to know from somebody who wasn't getting paid to say good things about Journal Assembly. I would do research on the staff and the school. Find out what's the teaching methodology of the school. What do they really believe in? Find out about the teachers. Learn if they have a social media presence. Are they still doing projects in their spare time? And what makes them an expert? What makes them worthy to teach you? Above all, find out about their student outcomes. How long does it take for somebody to graduate to getting their first developer job? You want to know this information, and you can usually ask them for their outcomes reports or find it online. I mean, you really don't want to spend time and money going to a school only to find out that you can't get the job that you were trying to get in the first place. Okay, those were 7 questions to help you decide whether you should go to a coding bootcamp or not. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you answer them. Just comment below. All right, thank you for watching. Bye.